guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video I'm very excited for because I'm going to be doing my July TBR. Now for the month of July, I just feel it in my bones. This is the start to some epic reading. I feel like I'm going to carry on through the rest of the year. I feel really back into the swing of things. I'm currently in the midst of or excited to start a lot of different fantasy series that I just can't wait to cover. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into all of the books I hope to read in the upcoming month. The first book on my TBR is one I'm so excited to get to. It's also one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and that is Daughter's War by Christopher Bowman. This is a sequel to The Black Tongue Thief, one of my favorite books when I read it when it came out a few years ago, and The Daughter's War is actually a prequel to this book. Christopher Bowman's style I would describe as like the perfect combination of horror and fantasy. His characters are outlandish and hilarious and really lovable, but he sets them in some of the darkest and strangest fantasy landscapes you truly will encounter. The Black Tongue Thief was truly incredible. It centers a quest following two unlikely individuals as they have to like go out on it and survive and rely on each other. The first character is a down on his luck thief who's very much in debt. To basically get out of this debt, he sets sights on our other main character, Galva, who is a veteran of the Goblin War and a knight. Obviously, his attempted thievery does not go well, and again, they set out on a quest together. The Daughter's War is a prequel novel, and in this, we're actually following Galva in this world. She sets out into this devastating and dark landscape, following the paths of her brother and also defying the will and expectations of her family, and we see her as she survived and ultimately make a name for herself in this very bloody and dangerous situation. Again, I love Christopher Bowman's writing. I love Galva as a main character, so I'm excited to read an entire book centered on her. I hope we get more books set in this world and just in general more books by Christopher Bowman because I love his writing so much. The next book that's on my TBR is another recent release that I'm hoping to get to, and that is The Foxwife by Yangshi Chu, another author I love dearly. I have read all of this author's previous releases, and this one in particular I feel like could possibly be my favorite yet. This is a story that centers the concept of the fox spirit. It's also set in the turn of the century. In it, we follow a variety of characters whose lives and fates become intertwined. The story itself opens with a young woman being found dead in a doorway, and the entire village thinks it has something to do with a fox spirit. Our first main character is a detective, kind of determined to try to figure out what in the world happened. We also are introduced to a family who has had a curse sort of befallen them now for generations, and that curse is the eldest son of their family always dies, but it appears that their fortunes are beginning to turn after a young woman has entered their household. And lastly, we also follow this young woman who is now working within this household. Again, everything is sort of interconnected, and the anchor of the story again is the concept of the fox spirit. I feel like this is going to be the perfect blend of historical fiction and fantasy, which you typically find within Yangshi Chu's writing. I just love her books immensely, and I can't wait to pick this up. Another book I can't wait to read this month is Binti by Ninendia Okorafor. This is a trilogy of short stories, and I've actually read the first short story last month, so I'm hoping to wrap up this entire trilogy by reading the final two books in the month of July. I loved the first one immensely. It's honestly like a 5 out of 5 star read for me, so I feel like the next two are also going to be incredible. This I would describe as sort of a sci-fi coming-of-age story. It balances having a very intense and unexpected plot with such a lovable main character kind of overcoming so many different trials and tribulations, both in a personal aspect, but also just in the reality that she lives on another planet and is attending a very prestigious like intergalactic university. In this story, we're introduced to our main character Binti, and Binti at the beginning of book one has decided to leave home. She herself is a genius and is incredibly skilled at utilizing something called an astrolabe, and she has been recruited to attend a faraway university. Her family is not really wanting her to leave as they are a very close-knit village and no one really leaves their village, and if they do, they're sort of ostracized. However, though, Binti at the prospect of kind of going to this place of learning decides to take the leap and go. However, though, everything sort of transforms as she's traveling on a spaceship to attend this faraway university when it's attacked by another set of aliens, and from there the trajectory of Binti's life is forever changed. Again, I loved book one. I really cannot emphasize like how much the author is able to pack in into not a lot of space. Ninendia Okorafor's writing is excellent. I've loved honestly all of the books that I've picked up from her, and I just can't wait to finish this trilogy this month. Another book I'm very much looking forward to picking up is The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. This of course is the second standalone novel that exists between Joe Abercrombie's two primary trilogies that all exist within the same world. Joe Abercrombie's writing is known for being grim-dark, bloody, and full of characters that you will oddly fall in love with despite not being able to really get a handle on their moral compass. They will constantly shock and surprise you, and to say that his stories are unexpected expected, I think is a bit of an understatement. Her standalone novel was Best Served Cold, and it was an incredibly dark revenge story that really, if you have a squeamish stomach, like maybe don't pick up. But The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie, which is the second standalone novel, might be the one I'm most looking forward to reading, just because the setup sounds really interesting. We're basically following a variety of different warriors all converging on the same battle. They're all on different sides of this conflict, and I think it's sort of this countdown to the eventual battle that is going to occur and take place over the course of this novel. That just sounds really interesting to me. The fact that it's kind of focused on one specific event, and we're also reading about this event from all sides, so I'm not quite sure where our personal loyalties will lie as a reader. So I'm curious about this. I really enjoy Joe Abercrombie's writing, even if it does disturb me immensely, but I feel like this could be a knockout. Another book I'm hoping to pick up this month is Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. This, of course, is the sequel to Godkiller, a book I read last year and really enjoyed. As a series, this has one of my favorite trope setups, if I'm being honest, and that is a quest full of unlikely individuals who should be enemies but ultimately begin to work together as they begin to learn from each other. I just love a ragtag group of individuals. What can I say? This series is also set in a really interesting world. It's basically existing in the aftermath of a huge civil war, resulting in kind of the overthrowing and the destruction of all the gods that lived in this fantasy landscape. And this was a world that had many, many, many gods. Some were good, but many were bad and definitely overused their power and influence on society. And now we're following a group of individuals that is comprised of a young girl who has a god that's sort of attached to her, and a god killer, as well as a knight venturing once again out on a quest. I really enjoyed the writing style and the setting of the first one. I'm looking forward to see where the story is going to take us next, so I definitely want to get to the sequel soon. It's also, simply put, one of the prettiest books on my TBR. The next book on my list I definitely need to get to soon because it is my IRL book club pick. This was the one that was voted on and won for our July read, and that is Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman. I feel like this will be a really great, easy summer read. I've heard it's very compulsive, kind of has a thriller edge, and in general, the setup also kind of gives summer beach read vibes, though in a very intense way, not like a cute, cozy kind of way. The setup of this book is 10 years ago, after a sun-soaked summer in Greece. Best friends Bess and Joni were cleared in any involvement in the passing of their other friends Evangeline's death. But that didn't stop the media from tearing these two teenage girls' lives apart. While the girls were never convicted, both of them sort of began to live very different lives after these events. First, Joni, ever the opportunist, decided to become kind of a well-known motivational speaker, whereas Bess sort of retreated into a very insular in private life, not really wanting to kind of gain the public's attention ever again. Except now, because Joni turned up on Bess's doorstep needing a favor and an alibi, and based on the events of what happened 10 years ago, Bess, of course, has to oblige. Again, I feel like this is going to be a very intense thriller story. I love that it appears to have maybe two different timelines, what happened 10 years prior and obviously what's happening now. I feel like this will be a fun one to discuss in book club, and in general, I'm hoping I'll be able to read it quickly. Next book that's on my TBR is Tiamat's Wrath by James S.A. Corey. This is the 8th book to the Expanse series. I feel like I'm really on the home stretch with reading this series, not only because I'm on the second to last book, but I just recently wrapped up reading book 7, and I just feel the momentum right now to finish reading this series, and I'm also just very invested based on the plot of the 7th book. I just have loved reading this series so much, and they're also coming out with a new book this year, so I want to be caught up and ready to venture into something new and leave the Expanse series in the past, but it has been a series I've now been reading for 3 or 4 years. If you're not familiar, the Expanse series is a very intense, very plot-forward, sci-fi space opera series. At the beginning of this series, humanity has left the bounds of Earth now for many generations. There are now governments residing on Earth, Moon, Mars, and a series of space stations called the Belt, and there has been a lot of tensions between all of these governments for a long time. At the beginning of the series, things sort of turn upside down when our main character, James Holden, finds a piece of alien technology. This is a series that's first and foremost about James Holden and his crew, the BFFs, the family unit that is this ship and group of people that you definitely will fall in love with, and they anchor the story perfectly. But we're also introduced to a huge cast of characters characters in all different types of locations, planets, space stations, spaceships, and we also see the ballooning of a plot that honestly it's hard to even like describe to you because so many different things happen, but at the core of it, it's about humanity, their faults and their follies, but also their perseverance and heart at the end of the day, and this combination of things just makes the entire thing very addicting. The plot in book 7, bananas, as you would expect, and I just need to see how the end game of this series is going to wrap up because I'm truly on the edge of my seat. 7 books, thousands of pages with these characters. I still can't get enough, so yes, I'm looking forward to checking out book 8 and hopefully book 9 soon. The next book that's on my TBR, I feel like is sort of an underrated but very beloved book to the people who have read it, and that is The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. This is another like unlikely crew going out on a quest together, and as I've already established in this video, I love that setup and synopsis, and I'm definitely also craving it. But this book opens up in the city of Abora, which once glittered with gold, but now the city streets are stocked with wolves, and our main character, Tormalind the Oathless, has no desire to hang around and watch the city of his ancestors fall to pieces. So when an eccentric explorer asks him to join her adventuring guild, he sees this as a way out. Even if he's joined by fugitives who would prefer to set things on fire and is forced to basically find artifacts that might be better left where they are. However, though, this unlikely group of explorers are drawn into a tangled web of conspiracy and things begin to devolve from there. I just feel like this is going to be so much fun, but also very, very intense. I just want to fall in love with more characters. I think as I am nearing the completion of the Expanse series, which has such a strong core of people that are all from different places, have their own personalities, have conflict with each other, but ultimately love each other, I want more of it, and I want it in new and different stories. So I feel like this is definitely going to fit the bill, and I can't wait to read this. The next book that's on my July TBR is Network Effect by Martha Wells. This is the 5th book within the Murderbot series by this author. Obviously, I have been featuring and chatting about this series so much on my channel because I'm truly in love with it. Murderbot is probably one of my favorite characters of 2024. I love Murderbot immensely, but this is a sci-fi series centering our main character Murderbot, who sort of hacked its own mainframe, sort of removing the instructions and bounds that it was forced to follow for many, many years, and now it's sort of been on this journey to discover itself and figure out its place within the universe at large, but it also gets drawn into lots of unexpected problems as it helps not only like human clients, but makes begrudgingly friends along the way. The series is hilarious and full of heart, but also has a lot of action as well, and just the balance of everything is exceptional. And again, I just love Murderbot. So I'm looking forward to reading the full-length novel within this sequence, as I just already know it's going to be a home run. And the last book that's on my TBR is a big one, perhaps a bit ambitious, but I feel confident I'm going to be able to do it. And that is An Echo of Things to Come by James Islington. This is book 2 to the Lycanus series. I read book 1 earlier this year and I enjoyed it. It was definitely a book that, as I progressed through the plot and story, I began to like it more. Aspects of it I was a little disappointed by from a writing style point of view, but I cannot deny that the plotting was definitely something that pulled me in. It was explosive and unexpected, and just the trajectory and the structure of the book was also a bit unexpected. But to take a step back, this is a Roman-inspired fantasy story wherein which a generation prior there was a revolution. Before the start of this novel, there were once these like all-powerful beings that had like prophetic sight and magical powers that ruled the empire for a very, very long time. And underneath them, there was also humans that had magical abilities as well. However, though, there was a revolution by the people that they obviously mistreated. Now magic is heavily controlled by this new regime, and from here we're introduced to our main character and set of main characters that all have different types of magical abilities. It starts out very much feeling like a Chosen One quest story, but we really branch off into lots of different directions and begin to follow lots of different characters. There's conspiracy, there's prophecies from the past, there's so many different villains, you're not quite sure who to trust. I mean, so many things happen in book 1, it was very hard to put down. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the world continues to grow in book 2. And in general, this is like a very popular author, so we shall see. Alrighty guys, that is my July TBR. Please let me know down below some books you hope to get to this month, as I would love to know. And I will see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye!